1 second.
Shall we start admitting folks?
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm just going to get this up. Why is this not doing this? Hold on. Yeah, let's do it. Good morning, everybody. As we just wait for people to join, we're going to kick things off with a very quick Zoom poll here. So please take the next few minutes just to answer the following question, and our session will begin shortly.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. I'll allow everyone to answer the poll, but I'll kick it off for a few minutes after the hour. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the first session of this 5-part series, Metrics 1 of the Greater Vancouver Circular Economy Network online series. My name is Brianna, and I'm an analyst at the Vancouver Economic Commission. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations lands on which I live and work. Our audience today encompass a much broader area, and we'd like to encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat and acknowledge the First Nations land where you're located. Thank you. We will be recording the presentation and the Q&A with the presenters. We will not be recording the breakout rooms. If you'd like to ask a question during the Q&A but do not want to be recorded, please remain off video, and we kindly ask you to place your questions in the chat box. This series is a collaboration between the Vancouver Economic Commission, Van City, and the Share, Reuse, Repair initiative. As the economic development agency for the City of Vancouver, VEC contributes to building a prosperous, inclusive, zero carbon, and resilient Vancouver economy, competitively positioned in the global market today and in the future. And from VEC, Meg O'Shea is also joining us. Meg, please give everyone a wave.
Hello.
As Van City is a cooperative financial institution committed to supporting its members and the communities they live in, and to leveraging all of its assets to support a transition to a low carbon resilient economy that works for everyone. Michelle Bonner, can you give us a wave from Van City?
Hello.
And finally, the Share, Reuse, Repair initiative brings together government, business, and community innovators to build a culture and economy of sharing, reuse, and repair in the Greater Vancouver region in order to prevent waste, support lighter living, and enable circular innovation. Rosemary Cooper and Alice Henry, can you both please give us a wave?
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
And I also want to acknowledge and give a huge thanks to Jillian Orrs, our Circular Economy Events Coordinator for the series. If you have any tech trouble, want to suggest a speaker, or want to engage further with the series, please reach out to Jillian in the chat function. And Jillian, can you give us a wave as well?
Hi, everyone.
So this is a new 5-part series that has been designed to enable knowledge sharing around specific circular economy topics most of interest to our local circular economy business community. The circular economy is an economic model that extends the life cycle of products. Throughout this process, waste is eliminated through the reduction, reuse, repair, and recycling of materials to limit inefficiencies and close gaps within the system. It aims effectively to design out waste. Circular practices can help to reduce the amount of finite raw materials taken from the earth, ensuring a more prosperous environment for future generations. Reusing materials results in a parallel reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and other environmental impacts, increase innovation, and the opportunity for significant cost reductions. In every session, you'll hear from subject matter experts and local businesses leading the way in our local circular economy and be invited to ask questions to them directly. In the second half of each session, you'll join breakout rooms where everyone's invited to share their challenges, questions, and insights on the topic of the day. Every session will be noting learnings and resources shared, compile everything, and share them back out in an email afterwards. This morning, we'll learn from one another about circular metrics. From today until mid-November, we'll get together approximately every 2 weeks. The series schedule is as follows. So October 14th, we have our first finance session. October 22nd, our second metrics, and November 10th, our second finance session. Similar to today, those 3 sessions will be running from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And then the final session is a policy forum on November 23rd, which will run from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We've set the schedule so that we can adapt each session by incorporating learnings from the previous session. We want this to be as beneficial for everyone as possible. In today's session, we'll be hearing and discussing circular metrics specific to how our 2 guest speakers have been tracking their metrics and leveraging them in different opportunities. In the facilitated breakout rooms, we'll be looking to hear from all of you on which metrics might be the right ones to track, figuring out the best way to capture those metrics, and challenges and opportunities with communicating those metrics. And with that, let's dive in. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Minto Roy. Minto is the co-founder and managing partner at Social Print Paper in Vancouver, Canada. Minto is also the co-creator of the forest-free sugar sheet and wheat sheet paper brands. With a vision to create a world that no longer uses paper or trees to make paper, Minto and his team work to advance the greater awareness and use of agricultural paper to support the paper and printing requirements of industry, government, and academic institutions. In collaboration with clients and distribution partners, Social Print Paper has saved millions of trees and reduced the release of millions of kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions. Minto was recognized as one of Canada's top emerging immigrant entrepreneurs by the National Post and is also recognized in 2016 by Canada's Clean 50 as one of Canada's top 50 leaders in sustainability. Minto was also the co-owner of the Canadian Immigrant magazine and has published many articles in national and regional publications. Minto has created and hosted 4 radio shows in Vancouver related to HR, sales, marketing, and business. Minto is a committed family man and participates in local charities and associations. He serves on the board of directors for the Canadian Manufacturers and Exports and proudly supports the work of Junior Achievement in Canada and the David Suki Foundation. Please welcome Minto.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Brianna, thank you for the introduction. I'd also like to thank VEC, Van City, and Share and Reuse Repair for allowing me to share some thoughts. Just want to start off by saying something that we did that I hope every social and environmental entrepreneur tries out. Initially, when we started, the most important thing that we did was admit to our stupidity and ignorance about the subject matter we were about to get involved in. When we started to create paper out of agricultural fiber waste, I remember telling my business partner, listen, I don't know anything. What I'd like to do is jump into the community ecosystem. So really initially it was just listening, learning, volunteering, meeting with academic, government, industry, educational professionals and leaders. Over the next few months, I got a chance to share ideas and best practices that we learned. In the next year, we started to build an even bigger network, started to engage in a bit of thought leadership of our own. And that evolved over the next couple of years to participating on advisory boards, sitting on environmental panels with government, education, and industry, speaking at conferences, being a media voice on the subject, but really building our brand and company through active participation with the communities that we want to serve versus a transactional product play. We didn't know we were doing that. We just took the first step and just admitted to the level of ignorance and stupidity that we had. And it really served us well. So it's a great first step. If we can go to the first slide, Brianna, please. So our company makes paper out of agricultural fiber waste. We take agricultural fiber of sugarcane after it's been harvested for sugar, juices, alcohol, biofuels. We take the remaining residue waste product, divert it from going to global landfills, and we make our sugar sheet paper out of it. we were social entrepreneurs when we started out. We certainly wanted to help save the environment, help the planet, but we also wanted to make money. And as ridiculous as that sounds, that those two paths have been walking parallel for several decades. It's almost as if you were going to engage in environmental projects or environmental businesses, you had to give up, forfeit the commercial benefit of being in business. And we didn't adapt to that. We just thought, let's be social entrepreneurs. So the paper that we created had to look, feel, perform to the same standards as traditional paper, and also had to be around the same competitive price. We just thought over the last 30 or 40 years, too many sustainable products have come to consumers and said, hey, listen, for the added value of sustainability, you have to pay more or sacrifice quality and performance. And we just didn't want to be the same cliche. So metrics was really important to us on the topic today. Our paper, as you can see, it's 100% forest-free, made with agricultural fiber. But from the environmental metrics, we had to showcase exactly what we can offer in environmental savings. So initially, in the first couple of years, we hired retained a leading environmental audit firm called TrueCost to conduct 2 independent life cycle assessments on our product. Comparing the production of our sugar sheet product to that of traditional virgin wood fiber, recycled wood fiber, and 100% post-consumer waste paper. We compared 3 things. We compared the release of carbon during the production process. We compared the release of carbon during the transportation process. We compared the use of water during the production process. And we compared the use of trees or tree fiber during the production process. Both life cycle assessments came out to show that the production of sugar sheet in comparison to wood fiber papers released less carbon emissions, used less water because the strands of the sugarcane fiber are shorter, requiring less water in the process, used no trees, and from a transportation point of view, reduced the release of carbon emissions as well. We have had the life cycle assessments reviewed by various provincial climate action committees. And what we can now offer is measurable eco savings to our clients. So in Canada, in every province, every major government education organization has to report their carbon emissions. In Canada, in each province, 3 things are measured: building energy use, fleet transportation, and paper. So we're one of the categories. So when great organizations like a BCIT in Vancouver who switched to sugar sheet, we can show them every single year how much CO2 that they have reduced by switching to sugar sheet versus staying with the incumbent wood fiber paper. Now they can take their emissions reductions and incorporate that into their annual carbon tax reporting to the province, offsetting carbon tax payable to the province. So it's an actual cash savings that they will occur. And that adds a lot of powerful value beyond the environmental value. Next slide, please. So every day, this is part of our mission. We literally thought in the beginning, how about in the next 15, 20 years, we create a world that literally walks around and says, can you believe we used to use trees to make paper and packaging? And we need a lot of help in that, in creating that world. Today, still in North America, 3 million trees are cut down every single day to create paper and packaging. We know that less than 15% of the original forests remain, and global landfills are full of agricultural fiber waste that we can use to make paper and packaging. Let's go to the next slide, please. Whoops. This is really something that I want every social entrepreneur to get across. Measurable sustainability is a competitive advantage. What I've learned in meeting with hundreds of C-suite leaders over the last 5 to 7 years is that most C-suite leaders have, number one, no idea what type of paper they use, and number two, they don't care. But as soon as they recognize the competitive advantage of measurable sustainability to drive other core business functions. They then drive the message to procurement and say, hey, take a look at this, okay? So it's really important that every entrepreneur that's in a social or environmental business develop the fluency to represent themselves both as a competitive business advantage and a social advantage. I always liken it to, can you customize your communication narratives about your product to represent yourself as both a competitive advantage and a competitive threat if they don't implement it? And I think that's important to start to customize your communication to get to that level. I think it's important too that we get off this ideological agreement about sustainability. We want to create more than just interest. We want to create urgency to act. And I think it's important that you not only talk about the ideological benefits and the alignment of sustainability as something they want to do, but really be able to dive deep in and how does sustainability help their sales, their marketing, their compliance, their operations. I'll give you an example. We had a small insurance company in Toronto switch to Sugar Sheet. We had them switch their contracts to Sugar Sheet. Now, 50 times a week, the small insurance company presents the opportunity for their customers to sign on the dotted line. Now, from a sales perspective, whenever you're trying to get someone to make a decision, most people get nervous. But because the contracts were now on Sugar Sheet, we had their sales staff implement one line, and that is they told the customer, oh, by the way, that contract you're about to fill out is made with 100% recycled agricultural fiber waste paper. It's our way to work with our clients to minimize the impact on the environment. So the customers they found were saying, oh, that's so cool. They grabbed the contract, they held it, so it became a greater value to them. And what they found over 3 months of just switching their contracts to the Sugar Sheet and saying that one line, their closing ratio went up 18%, driving business revenue. Just a simple idea, leveraging the truth, leveraging the value of sustainability to drive business growth. And I think there's a lot of great opportunities out there to help various departments do the same thing. And I think it's important to present your products and partnerships beyond a transactional level. If you're only creating transactional relationships with your clients, you're going to be always at the mercy of price competitiveness, regionality. So you want to be more than a transactional relationship with your customers. And if someone wants to follow up with me, I'd be happy to talk about multiple ways to do that as well. Last slide, please. Yeah. Well, it's important that if you're going to create metrics, it's not always about what you say about your product, but it's about your capacity to reference other credible stakeholders and credible brands or credible people that will support what you're saying. The fact is we had to get our metrics reviewed, audited by an independent environmental audit firm, True Cost. We are fortunate that we can state amazing companies like organizations like the VEC, UBC, BCIT, London Drugs. They not only they use our paper and they proudly communicate the use of our paper, and we're so fortunate to have amazing partners like this. Sustainability also, if you're driving business growth, you've got to remember people just don't want a sustainable product. They want a sustainable product at the same performance, quality, comparative price, but they also want to be able to procure the sustainable product in the same methodology and to minimize disruption in their supply chain and procurement. So it's not just about creating a sustainable product. How are you going to sell it? How are you going to make it easy for the consumer to adapt it, to integrate it, and also how they're going to leverage it to support their business beyond just their commitment to the environment. Thank you for allowing me to share some thoughts today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Minto. It was so great to learn about the process at Social Print Paper and also how you're communicating that with all of your clients as well. And so before we go into questions, I'll have our second speaker, Chris Arkell from Sea to Sky Removal. So with over 20 years of building experience under his belt, Chris's experience helps his clients save valuable manpower hours by allowing their employees to do what they do best, rather than having them take timely treks to the landfill. Throughout his tenure in the construction industry, he realized there is a need for an environmentally focused waste removal business along the Sea to Sky corridor, and founded Sea to Sky Removal with his wife, Cincy. Chris is an entrepreneur, having owned his own successful general contracting business, and was the head project manager for the West Coast division of a large-scale Toronto-based construction company. Please welcome Chris.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here. I'd like to start by acknowledging that our office and where we are right now is on the traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, the traditional territory of the Tla'amin First Nation. So yes, that's a bit of background on me, a little bit more than that. So I've actually been in the building industry since I was in my teens, and that brings me to almost 30 years in the industry. Started as a carpenter and moved on up as said to have my own general contracting company for 11 years. So I basically spent my whole adult life in the construction industry. Construction has been changing rapidly over that time. One area that hasn't really changed up until we have our company is the waste management of it. I also started the company with my wife, Cincy Sear. She, prior to owning the company with me, has a business and marketing degree and had her own communications company. We started the company in 2016, so we're into our, I guess, 6th year now of business. And today we are a certified B Corp company, and I believe we're the first commercial waste hauler in the world to become a B Corp certified company. And metrics really played a huge part in that, which I'll describe a little bit later. Next slide, please. Okay, so why we started this company? So the traditional way of disposal of construction waste was everything goes into a bin or everything goes into a pile and then goes into a bin and gets disposed of. And we started the company for 2 reasons. We saw a need and we saw a niche in the market that was unfilled. And touching on something that Minto said, that we are entrepreneurs as well. And so we formed a company, we made a company that we wanted to do some good, but we also did want to make a profit. We did want to be able to have a sustainable business. And the two parts of having an environmentally conscious company and having a profitable company do not need to be separate. And that's one thing that the metrics really helped us kind of work on and increase our ability to have a thriving company. We wanted to make an impact as well. So you see the piles of construction waste that are on the screen in front of you, and that is traditionally what has been going to the landfill for forever. So no separation or no sorting of material to remove the items that can be recycled or reused or donated. Everything would go straight to the landfill. So we decided that we wanted to change that and make an impact. Next slide, please. So how we do that is our crews hand sort everything. So we don't have bins that we drop on site. We have trucks that have bins on the back of them that we live load. So what our crews will do is go through every garbage bag, every pile of construction waste, and we will sort plastics, metal, cardboard, drywall, usable wood, donatable items, clean wood, and then lastly, the waste that goes to the landfill. So through our work, we have had a really great opportunity to be able to gather metrics based on this process. So the hand sorting is a huge part of us being able to have our company be able to gather our metrics and be able to know what exactly, broken down into categories, we are disposing of, be it disposal into the landfill or to recycling or rehoming. Next slide, please. So once we have sorted these materials, this is generally what it will look like. So piles of plastics and styrofoam and cardboard and metals that we are then easily able to take to the places that they need to be disposed of. Lastly, the landfill waste goes to the landfill. But this is kind of the start for us that really got us into a mode of being able to break down the materials that we are handling and disposing of, and be able to track them, so that we can know exactly what percentage of materials we're able to keep out of the landfill, and then also use that data to move forward as a company, for our profitability, and then also to be able to track our impact and track the work that we're doing for the planet and for the environment, and then also be able to extrapolate that information to be able to use on a larger scale, to be able to work to work with the amount of builds and the amount of construction that is happening. So it's a very labor intensive process. It is a very hard job to do, but it's a very a fulfilling job for both us and our crews. So Cincy and I, when we started, we were on the truck together for the first year, and we did this together, just the two of us. And then we grew our company to have employees that would end up doing this with us and for us. And we've got 2 trucks on the road, and we found that the 2 trucks right now are operating at full capacity. So we are maximizing for our company the diversion that we can keep out of the landfill. Okay, so where this leads us to, sorry, next slide. So here we have another photo of the material that is broken down and where it goes to. We try our best to use the material, to reuse and rehome the material as much as we can. So if you look at the top left corner, Urban Repurpose is a great partner of ours that will take the material that is able to be reused. Kitchens, they're fantastic. So that's our first choice, and then everything else after that will be recycled. Next slide, please. So through this process, we developed a system of recycling stations that we keep on site to be able to allow the crews on the sites that they're on to be able to sort the material into the plastic, cardboard, and metal categories to allow our job to be a little bit easier when we get to site. It also really helps us track our metrics and makes our time on site a lot faster. So these have been a really large success for our company and for our clients in able to track the waste and be able to have efficiency, building efficiencies on site to remove the amount of time, lessen the amount of time that it takes to do our job, because our job is traditionally fairly time consuming. Next slide, please. So this brings us to the metrics, which is very exciting to me, because I love being able to track the material that we touch and the material that we use. So we have a few ways of being able to track our metrics. So, and the material that we use. Our trucks scale in and scale out at the transfer stations. Our trucks scale in and scale out at the drywall disposal facilities, and our trucks are able to scale out depending on the volume for cardboard and metal. If the volume of the material isn't large enough for us to actually use a scale for it, we have on-site hand scales that you can see in the middle picture and the left picture. That's our Vancouver manager, Zach, weighing a bucket of metal. And so we are able to track the weights of the materials that we are disposing of. And these weights of these materials are then recorded, and I compile them into a spreadsheet, and I have an ongoing data of the materials that we are recycling and disposing of. And so this is very important for us as a company. It was a major factor in us becoming B Corp certified. The ability to track our waste was huge, because it gave validity to what we are doing and what we are operating as a company, as our MO. And so we were able to provide the data to the B Corp, to become B Corp certified, to allow them to know, yes, this is the volumes that we do, and these are the volumes of material that we send to recycling and keep out of the landfill. And so it's a really big part of our company to be able to do this. And something that I want to touch on that Minto said, which is really kind of hit home to me, is that you do need to find ways to be competitive and have an advantage in business, even if you are being sustainable. And this is a huge one for us. So we are currently, as far as we know, one of the only companies that do this. maybe because of the time it takes to actually sort and weigh and measure. But we see this as the way of the future, and we're kind of like the pioneers in it, but we're hoping that this ends up being something that is really used and mandated across the construction industry. And our metrics and our ability to be able to say, look, this is the volume of material that we are sending to the landfill if it wasn't for this system, that we are doing across the board in construction with bins and just sending things to the landfill. So that's a really important part of that. Next slide, please. Okay, so originally we started collecting the data for LEED and Built Green projects. In about the first year of us being in business, we had clients who were doing LEED and Built Green programs. And part of that is a point system where they need to amass points to get their certification. One of the categories was waste management. And this is really what kind of clued us into the tracking and we were already sorting and doing the separation, but the metric side to things came in when we had to start providing our clients with load breakdown sheets or waste diversion sheets that the industry, that those certifications needed. So we thought, this is fantastic. We need to be able to keep all this information and track what we as a company as a whole are keeping out of the landfill. So we have approximately 30 to 40% of our jobs we are tracking all the waste on. And this has been able to allow us to have the data that we are annually keeping anywhere between 1 million and 1,250,000 pounds a year out of the landfill. And we're able to also break that down into the categories of what the materials are. And another massive stat on that is the volume of material. So plastics is a huge issue in our industry. Plastics are a leading source of our as a company, our kind of frustration with construction and our ability to be able to recycle the material. So us being able to track the volume of the plastic is large as well, because we, in 1 year, and this was 2 years ago, we were able to keep 53 super sacks of material out of the landfill. So 53, a super sack is 1 meter cubed. So that's 53 meters cubed of material that we were able to keep out of the landfill. We wouldn't know that if we weren't tracking our material, but that is a massive stat, because plastic by weight is basically weighs very little. 1 bag of plastic weighs approximately 8 pounds. But 2 bags of plastic equal a meter cubed. So that volume being kept out of the landfill is huge. And for us to be able to convey what we're doing as a company, to use it for one of the main things we do is advocate for the construction industry to change its practices. We advocate for the construction industry to be more responsible with its waste. We advocate for the construction industry to start dealing with their waste in a way that thinks of the future and is able to be reused and rehomed. And the last place we want it to go is the landfill. So having this data and tracking our metrics gives us the ability to say and speak, we've walked the walk. We have the info. We have the data to be able to present to government, municipalities, other construction companies. And one of the huge things that our clients love is that we are able to provide them with the load breakdown sheets that then they are able to use for marketing. They're able to use for their social media. They're able to provide to their clients. A lot of clients now are starting to clue into what's happening with construction and in the world of construction. And they're asking, hey, what are you doing with your material? And then they're able to provide their clients, oh, well, this is where your material went. This is where it was recycled. This is where it was rehomed. And so it works on a number of levels. It's good for business and it's good for the environment. And I can't believe 15 minutes went so fast, because that's pretty much it. But thank you very much for bringing us here. I love talking about what we do and trying to get the information across that we need to be thinking about construction in a way that quickly, construction contributes to over 50% of landfill waste. So it's an area that is kind of needing to be dealt with, and our data and our metrics are helping lead the way to be able to start figuring out a way for the construction industry to deal with it properly and not just dispose of everything in one hit. Thank you very much. I'm really good to be here.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's great to hear the echoes between, both your presentation and Minto's about how deeply metrics are really integrated within your business model. So I've been looking at the chat here, and we have a few questions already. So Minto, a question for you is, are you able to share the ballpark cost for an LCA analysis by a company like TrueCost? And do you have any thoughts about how LCA could be offered at lower cost for pre or early revenue startups?
That's a great, again, great question. So the ballpark for the LCAs, just to give you an idea, we're looking at about $10,000. However, I will tell you that the federal and provincial governments, especially for startups, offer support programs to assist with investing in things like LCAs and R&D. So I think as an entrepreneur, you need to put on your industrial hat to go and pitch the vision of what your LCA represents and the value that it will bring to stakeholders that also align with government programs and government policies. And I think it's important that if you can do that, you should be able to secure some funding from third parties to help you get the LCA done.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Minto. And I know we have a few other questions in the chat, but I just want to pause and see if anyone has a question they'd like to ask themselves. And if you do, please feel free to speak up or put your hand up if there's anyone who hasn't placed a question in the chat yet. Okay, I'll give everyone a moment to warm up. Minto, there's a few questions in the chat around, the product that's created into the paper. And so, a question around, have you explored alternative feedstocks to make up the paper products to incorporate into the process?
Yeah, we have explored various feedstocks. However, we find that sugarcane offers as close to the same quality performance as traditional wood fiber paper. Agricultural fiber has been used for 20,000 years. The Egyptians used it to make papyrus paper and scrolls back, thousands of years ago. But again, the key to driving sustainable innovation is we need to make something that looks, feels, performs to the same standards as the incumbent solution right now, at around the same competitive price. And I think that's important. So when you're considering different stocks, you got to consider, okay, is this going to offer the same quality? And I'll give you one more example. I was at, we make our paper in South America. I really believe that the major problems we're dealing with in the world, whether they're hunger, education, equal rights, the environment, these are global problems. We cannot solve global problems with a regional mindset. So I was in Ottawa a couple of years ago in a committee meeting. The federal government has selected our paper as one of the eco-friendly papers of choice to support Canada's commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And one of the directors of procurement asked me, Minto, when is this going to be made in Canada? And I asked them, is that your question, or is your question, when is this going to be made in Canada at the same price that it's made now? And I held up my iPhone and said, if this iPhone was made in Vancouver, it would cost $20,000, nobody would buy it. In fact, nothing in his office really was made in Canada. And I think that's important whenever you're diving into these questions, you look at, can we make a product that looks, feels, performs the same, and it fits the business requirements when we're answering questions that are traditionally challenging, but take a new framework to answer those questions.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, Minto. And I know we have a few questions in the chat, but I can see that Michelle's raised her hand. So Michelle, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi there. Thanks, Brianna. This is for both Chris and Minto. Would either of you be willing, or both of you, would you be willing to share an example that we might share with the participants in the webinar later of how you communicate? Chris, I think about your diversion sheets, and of course, totally understand if it's proprietary, but I have a feeling folks on the call might find it really helpful to see concrete examples of how you're communicating out your metrics.
You bet. No, I'm open to sharing that, and I wish that I had one to bring up on screen right now. We basically have for every load that we do that is tracked, we have a load breakdown that shows the weight and volume of the material that was disposed of and where it went, and then at the bottom it will show the totals of material that went to landfill and materials that were donated, recycled, or recycled. So we do that, and we also, as a company, we take a photo of every single load that we do. So that goes in with our company with the invoice as well. So they'll get the load breakdown and they will get a photo of it, and that's another way to kind of, the visual impact for us is to show them that it's been sorted, and it gives them for their clients, the concrete proof that yes, this material was taken and this is what it was, where it went. And I'm happy to share what our load breakdown looks like. I can even email you one.
Thank you. That was great to hear about.
Absolutely, same thing for us. We also provide our measurable eco savings reports at different time periods with customer relationships. First of all, potential clients, when we engage them, we provide them with a measurable, first of all, price quote, comparing price of sugar sheet to the traditional paper they're using. And we provide them a measurable eco savings quote along with a price quote showing how much greenhouse gas savings and how much trees will be saved and how much water will be saved by transitioning to sugar sheet. So providing them in the business case of both a price quote and an eco savings quote. During the relationship, we provide them an eco savings quote every 6 months that they can share with their internal, external stakeholders. And lastly, we share ideas and best practices on how they can leverage those eco savings to drive core business functions. And we've learned a lot of those from what our clients are doing, who are very innovative of leveraging to drive their business growth.
Thanks, Minto. Super helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so great that you're able to, share those resources as well. Chris, is there a way that you're able to offer a charitable receipt to your clients for them to receive if they've donated items for reuse?
You bet. So we do. There is, depending on the size and what the material is, if it's just single small items, then it doesn't really make sense to offer a receipt for that. But for things that are large, like kitchens and cabinets and anything like that, we are able to, we take the material to either Habitat or to Urban Repurpose, and they are for sure able to provide donation receipts for tax purposes. Yeah, and then we also, as a company, so if we have loads that are donatable and we have loads that are all recycling, we offer better pricing on our loads to incentivize our customers to be disassembling their cabinets and disassembling the items of the house that can be reused and recycled. We've prioritized that as a company, so we offer quite good reduction in our costs to them for that. So we really try and incentivize that for sure.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, definitely speaks to the competitive, business advantage everyone's been mentioning. I know, Chris, we had another question in here around, your business model might require extra labor potentially, and how did you justify this extra cost before the value of metrics were really clear?
So we knew right from especially because Cynthia and I did the first year on the trucks, we knew the labor that was involved. So we had a really good understanding of the time taken that was needed to do what we do. We are able to offset that because once you've split the piles up into materials that are to be recycled or reused, it is the cost per ton to dispose of for clean wood, the cost for recycling, the cost. Well, there is no cost for metal. You can actually get a little bit of money back for the metal. It's not enough to even, to add into your numbers, but it doesn't cost to dispose of. So we had a really good idea of the time taken for each load and what it would take cost-wise for us. And that was balanced by the fact that the load costs for us to dispose of were going to be less. We knew that ultimately we weren't going to be able to compete dollars to dollars for people for the being able just to throw everything away, but we have been able to reduce that difference in costs for what it costs us a little bit more. And we knew doing what we're doing is going to cost us a little bit more. It's the way of the world. Like if you want to, unfortunately, if you want to do something the right way, it's generally going to cost you a little bit more. We're trying to show that that doesn't have to be the case. So we've priced ourselves very competitively. We're about mid-tier for what we do. We're not the most expensive, and we're not the cheapest, but we've gone really mid-tier. And we've done that to try and attract as much business as possible, obviously for the business side of things, but also so that we can touch as much waste as we can, to be able to divert as much as we can as well. So it's a bit of both, but there are cost savings to doing it. And there are a lot of cost savings for the client to do it as well. So it's kind of a good business model that way.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure the client loves to hear about those cost savings as well. Minto, a question from you from Mabad about what are your thoughts about stone paper?
Sorry. Yeah, I've certainly heard of stone paper. I've tried it. There are a lot of substrates, whether it's wheat, hemp, stone, that can be used to produce paper. Again, and going back to the competitive business model side, number one, we found that the quality of paper from a runnability and performance point of view was not as good as sugarcane, using sugarcane. Two, price-wise. Three, scalability. The world is full of global landfills of agricultural fiber waste. So we want to be able to scale, especially if you're trying to grow some sort of vision that's national or global. You've got to appreciate that major clients and major brands want to make sure if they integrate your solution that it's scalable to support their regional and global operations. So can you get the volume of input materials required to produce? So yeah, but there will be, hopefully, with the greater awareness of alternative fiber paper and packaging, use of more alternative fiber versus using trees to make paper. And I want to say something that Chris said about price. Look, I agree that we should be able to get a bit of a price premium for the added value of sustainability, but I think you're only going to get that if you present the entire business case and be very fluent in your capacity to show how they're going to benefit from a business level, but also create the right context. And just to give you a quick example, and I remember talking about this to Rosemary in last time we met, an insurance company that we currently switched to Sugar Sheet, we were able to present the matrix to show, here, look, you're going to save 380,000 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions. You're going to save about 3,000 trees, and they love that, aligned with their core values. But they said to me, Minto, we're going to pay about $6,000 more than what we paid last year for paper. It was a difference between around 80,000 and 86,000. I didn't say anything to the CEO, and he said, what are your thoughts? And I said, are you asking me a question or are you making a statement? I don't know what you're saying. And he says, yeah, how do we justify the $6,000 increase? And I said, well, can I ask you something? I'm glad that what we're talking about aligns with your values and what your organization wants to do. But how did this beautiful leather chair get in your office? How did this beautiful mahogany desk get in your office? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, in the product category of leather chairs and desks, these aren't the cheapest ones you could have bought. How did the people representing these products overcome the question you just asked me? And he started to laugh. And I think it's important that your job is to, if you've really got a great sustainable product or innovation, your job is to position the obvious and not sell the obvious, but you have to effectively communicate positioning and be able to respond to typically asked questions in a different way versus the antiquated ways of rationalizing that's been used over the last 20 or 30 years.
Perfect. Thank you, Minto. Yeah, great to hear, echoes between all of these responses about the importance of the business advantage and, communication of the metrics. We do have another great question in the chat here for both Chris and Minto to answer. Do you think there's a metric that could be useful to circular businesses across all sectors, or are sector-specific metrics preferable to tell the story of impact?
Go ahead, Chris, please. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. I think you need to have the industry specific metrics so that you, I guess, are doing apples to apples, and you're able to convey where you stand in relation to the industry, and where you are able to kind of make stand out for yourself. And then I also think that those metrics can be moved across the board to just not industry specifics. If you're talking about what you're doing as a company for the environment, what you're doing as a company for your employees, and what you're doing as a company for your city or your town, that's a huge one as well. So you can make sure that you stand out in both areas. And I think the metrics are, in my opinion, one of the only ways to do that.
Yeah, I certainly agree with everything Chris said. I think sincere engagement's never about you, it's about them. So really being curious and confirming what metrics are important to the clients and the communities you're looking to serve. If they're looking to save trees, if they're looking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, save water, reduce landfill, your metrics have to be flexible to be able to communicate in the language they need to support their goals. Even when you ask those questions, getting to know your clients, we could go around asking, weak questions like, hey, does your company care about sustainability? Or what does your company do about sustainability? You're going to hear we recycle. But if we customize that question and say, hey, beyond traditional recycling, how is sustainability showcased within your corporation, and how do you measure it to drive core business functions? You take away the traditional cliche answer that they give you, and now you have a great open-ended discussion to learn more about them and what's important to them, and you can customize your solution as it relates to them.
I'm just going to add one more thing. I think that's great, Minto. I think one of the things is being able to customize that, and like you say, an open-ended discussion to be able to say, to put it back on them and say, well, what are other companies doing for your community? And what are other companies doing for their employees? And I know as a B Corp certified company, we have mandated days where we pay our employees to volunteer for things that they find important in their community, and then also things that we as a company find important. We just had one last week for our company where we had a full day of our crews going and doing beach cleanups and tracking the waste that they pulled off the beach cleanups in pounds and volume. And it's a really good way to be able to turn around and say, this is what we're doing, and this is where our values are. What are the other companies and corporations in your area doing that kind of matches this or is on the same level playing field? And it's a great way to have an open-ended discussion. And then also it's really good for your media channels and all that. There's a huge business side to it as well. So it's a bit of both.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, both excellent responses from both of you. And I think we're going to have to, pause the Q&A there. But before we head into our breakout rooms, it'd be great to see the results of the poll question that we had at the beginning of the session. So I believe Alice will be sharing those poll results with us right now. And so yeah, great to see that, a lot of people around waste diverted from landfill, but also greenhouse gas emissions. So, echoing that our presenters are doing today. And a few others that are important to other businesses on the call today. And so with that, I want to thank Chris and Minto for their time and sharing their expertise with us today. We all, really learned a lot from you, and I will pass it off to Jill, and she can share with us how the breakout rooms are going to look.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brianna. So all participants are going to be assigned to breakout rooms. Each room will have a facilitator. That will be Meg, Rosemary, or Michelle, and a note taker, which will be Brianna, Alice, and myself. So this is your opportunity to connect with fellow circular economy businesses and enthusiasts, ask questions, share tips, and build some relationships. So let's get the conversations going. While Alice is just setting up the breakout rooms, I will go through the questions that the facilitators may ask. We're just using these questions really as some guidelines to help the conversations going, but feel free to go in any direction the facilitators feel like, or if you want to ask some questions back. Those questions I'll also just post in the chat right now so everybody can take them off with them. There we go. And they are as follows. So what circular metrics are most relevant to you and your organization? What challenges your ability to capture relevant metrics? How are you sharing the impact of your business with metrics? What questions do you have for one another about metrics? And have you found any resources beneficial to tracking your metrics? So Alice, if we are good to go, we will come back after these breakout rooms at 10:25.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. I know that we are pulled away in, the moment of a really great conversation in my breakout there room, and I'm sure everyone's were just, really great conversations with everyone. But in our final few moments here together, let's all take 1 minute to think about what are the next steps you'll take to strengthen your circular economy metrics, or perhaps one of the biggest outcomes from the session today. So I'll just pause for a few seconds there, allow everyone to think about it. And then what we'll do is we'll place our comments in the chat all at the same time, and we can read through them and see what everyone's outcomes were for the end of the session today. So we'll just take a minute to think. Perfect. I know we just have 1 minute left, so if everyone wants to pop in their biggest outcome or what they're going to do to strengthen their circular economy metrics into the chat, it'll be great for everyone to, see what everyone's going to do going forward. And with that, I'll pass it off to Jill to close us out.
Excellent. Thank you, Brianna. So for any further information, please feel free to reach out to our presenters from today. Their information is here, so you guys can jot that down or take a screenshot. We'd also like to thank our facilitators for our breakout room sessions, and we're looking forward to seeing how those conversations went. Speaking of which, we will be sending out a post-event survey, so please keep your eye out for that, along with a resource document that is just going to compile all the resources that we talked about today in all our different breakout rooms. So thanks to the note takers as well. And those will be capturing all the biggest learnings from today's session. So we'll be sending that out to all participants via email. So as a reminder, this was the first session in our series, as Brianna mentioned earlier today, and we are aiming to get together approximately every 2 weeks from now on. So you can see the schedule here just for reference. Once again, we really do hope that everyone can join. Some or more of those. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. The registration link for these, I'm just going to pop up in the chat for anybody who has not had a chance to register as of yet. So within all those comments, the Eventbrite link is there. It's the same link that you accessed for this one. You just select the event that you'd like to attend. Okay. And additionally, we do want to acknowledge support from Van City, which has made this series possible. This is including providing an honorarium for our speakers. So thank you very much to Van City and Michelle for that. And finally, if there are any key topics or speakers that you're keen to see participate in this session, please reach out to me. You can see my email here on the screen. It's jill.orris@gmail.com. And you can also see our partner emails listed here. But if you do want to see anything specific, please feel free to reach out. Happy to hear from all of you. So thanks again to our speakers, our partners, and to all of you for spending the morning with us. Together, we can advance the circular economy in the Greater Vancouver area. Thanks, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And then there were 7. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.